Let's talk about learning to read. Usborne Books has done such a great job in developing books that get children to fall in love with reading. But remember, reading to them is the very best thing you can do. Surround them with books and read those books to them. Studies have shown that parents who read out loud to their children, even after they're reading themselves, produce children who love to read, have extensive vocabularies, and therefore they do extremely well on their SATs. Not to mention the fact that reading is just a benefit for all of life. So your children should always have books that they read to themselves, books that they read out loud to you, and books that you read to them long after they're proficient readers. It's just a great way to stay connected and to bond with your child. Well, let's get started with what Usborne has to offer. First of all, we have our phonics readers. This is just one of our single readers. It's called Goose on the Loose, and there are more than 15 or so titles in this series. They're illustrated by Stephen Cartwright, so there are familiar characters. In each one of the books, the characters come into play, and the children get to know them, and they get familiar with the illustrations. Each book teaches a different phoneme. Now, I am currently personally out of a book called Ted and Friends, but if you're looking for a great way to save money, you can get Ted and Friends, which comes with a CD and is a hardcover book compiled of 12 of our phonics readers. Okay? It is on my website, and even though I don't have one to show you, I didn't want to pass up the opportunity to tell you about it. Next up, we have the complete book of Farmyard Tales. I think if you had to pin me down to my one all-time favorite book, this would be it. Here's why. There are 20 stories in here. I'm so sorry. And this is also illustrated by Stephen Cartwright. There's so much you can do with this book. First of all, it's a dual reader, which means it's written at a kindergarten or so level at the top and a second or third grade level at the bottom. There's so much you can do with that. If you read across the top line, it will make one complete very short story. Great for if you need to put kids to bed in a hurry. And there are 20 different stories in the book. The other thing you can do is you can have your child read the top line and you read the bottom line. You take turns reading. We call it tandem reading. And your child's not responsible for every line on the page. They get a little break, in which time they can find the little yellow duck that Stephen Cartwright has geniusly hid on every page. Now also, when it starts a new story, there's the title page, but on the very first page of every story, the text is exactly the same. And children love that because of the familiarity and the confidence that it gives them. So it says, "This is Apple Tree Farm." And they remember that. Okay, I remember how to do this. I'm ready to keep going. And then you read, "This is Mrs. Boot the farmer. She has 2 children called Poppy and Sam and a dog called Rusty." And then you go on to read each individual story. Now, I also find that after they've learned to read, maybe when they're 7, 8, 9 years old, they'll pick this book up again. It has so many stories in it, and they can read it to themselves or often read it to a younger sibling. So this is one of those books that just is beloved within a family, probably why it's one of my favorites. And finally, Usborne put a lot of research and effort into the very first reading set. This is a set of 15 books with a box slipcover case. Okay? Usborne very first reading. I'm going to show this to you out of the Parent's Guide, which I find to be an incredibly helpful tool. It gives sample pages from the book so you can get a sense of what's inside each book, and these books are designed to be read in order. But just like with Farmyard Tales, the child is only reading certain words on a page and you're reading the rest. Each book explains to you some of the irregular words that they're going to find in the book and some of the words that they've already been exposed to, some of those letter sounds. And so they go from reading just a few words in the first book by the time they get to book 8, it encourages you to have the child read all the words in the book. So that means that halfway through the program, you can take a child who has never been reading before and you have them reading every word in one of these books. Here is book 3 in the series, where you still have parent words and student words. And it's just put together so that each one they're introducing a new sound, and children slowly but surely gain confidence in reading. And that's what we want.